philosophy in general, and it's something that all of you should be able to answer, but you might not be able to answer it the same way after you think of it 5 minutes, okay? Number one, are people good? Are people good by nature? I would say absolutely not. That's the end. People are really, really bad by nature, actually. By nature, human beings are broken. Now, where do I get that from? Well, first of all, I'm an evangelical Christian, so the idea of original sin. But let's make a secular argument. I always try to make a secular argument for everything, understanding that not everyone's going to be a Christian, okay? So, and I'll get to the Bible in a second, because I think the Bible should be taught more in our schools, but it's not. And not even necessarily from a religious perspective. So are people good? Let me ask you a question. You've all seen young kids manipulate, lie, cheat, steal, cry, act unruly. Have any of you, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, have any of you ever seen a parent teach a kid to do that? I haven't. We have to teach goodness to our children. We have to restrict their bad behavior. I've seen kids turn parents against each other. You ever see that before, where they lie to one, they say to the other, and they pit it against? Where do they learn that from? Well, it's inherent. Because by nature we are broken. We have to have institutions, or we have to have cultural gatherings, or parents to have goodness be taught to the next generation. So are people good? Absolutely not. The neo-Marxist postmodernists would disagree with this. They would say that people are actually good by nature. Actually, they're not good or bad by nature. They exist. And that because of our broken culture and the broken institutions, that human beings then become bad. That's a bunch of balderdash, okay? You like that word, right? I know, I love it. I found it the other day. I was like, I'm going to use that in a speech. Let me tell you why. So here's a great example. So if you believe the Darwinian theory of evolution, which I do, we evolved from chimpanzees. That's a pretty well accepted theory. Chimpanzees go to war. Chimpanzees have hierarchies. Chimpanzees fight each other. In fact, there was a chimpanzee war that was documented in the 1990s by a social psychologist from Britain, where there was a brutal conflict between chimpanzees that just beat each other up, and all this. And then there have been many documented ever since. So if it was the institutions, if it was our culture, when you go into the deep jungles of Africa, and those of which we evolved from chimpanzees, well then they should be totally peaceful animals living in communes, just as if Marx talked about it. Wrong. Right? No? They're also broken by nature, you could say. Right? Okay, next question. Are people perfectible? Okay? Are they perfectible? Absolutely not. No way. Are they perfectible? No. Some people would disagree. They would say, well, we can get really close to it. Well, so I would agree. Can we make them better? Of course people can be better. But can the human condition be perfected? Can the bad, the envy, the cheating, the lying, the stealing, the manipulation, the self-centeredness, the narcissism, the racism, the bigotry, can that be completely and totally eliminated? No. I would say absolutely not. So the next question is, what's the best way to teach goodness? Because we can all probably agree we want a better society, right? I've had a nihilist before. That was interesting. Like, we want nothing, and I love to watch the world burn. I said, you should be not allowed to own a firearm, dude. It's really not good. So what's the best way to teach goodness? I would say the best way to teach goodness is strong families, 2-parent households, churches, religious institutions, and a strong moral conduct originally found in the Judeo-Christian ethic. That's what I would say. Right? That's what I would say. So, some people would disagree. Some people say it has to be government. Some people would say government's the best way to teach goodness. Some people would say you remove those things, and then, like, for example, there's an argument by some secularists, not all of them, that's actually been a problem and a source of conflict and war and strife. There's some validity to that argument. I would poke holes in it very quickly. Okay. So, what is the best way to teach goodness? I would say the best way to teach goodness is through non-governmental institutions. Okay. Here's the next question. Where do rights come from? If you recognize we have rights, First Amendment right, Second Amendment, love the Second Amendment, by the way, big fan of the Second Amendment. Where do rights come from? Are they administered by a government bureaucrat? Are they given to you by your parents? So those of us that are conservatarians, we believe in natural rights. Upon birth, upon creation, you have the rights. They can neither be taken away, they can never be given out, they cannot be distributed. What does that mean? You don't have a right to property or health care or other people's income. You don't. Those are privileges, not rights. The right is something that you have in your base of consciousness, in your existence. Therefore, what government should we have? We should have a government that is prevented from taking those rights away from you, not giving them to you in the first place. Then the final question is this, which is a little bit more political, is do you trust the government? And I say, hell no. I mean, I don't trust the government. Are you kidding me? I definitely don't trust politicians. This is the last one. So, but how is that possible? So, like, how did I get to the answer of why I don't trust the government? Well, people are not good by nature. But government in general, the incentive structure behind government is to grow. It's to get bigger. And it is also to abuse that power. The Founding Fathers understood this. This is a connection to why the Constitution is the greatest political document ever written. Okay? Because the Constitution is the greatest political document ever written because the Founding Fathers were the first rebels in human history to overtake a government and then give the power away instead of keeping it for themselves. Never happened before. Never. I mean, there's been successful revolutions. I mean, people killed Julius Caesar, right? They didn't kill Julius Caesar and then create a constitutional republic after that, okay? They put themselves in power. Instead, the Founding Fathers revolted against Britain, successfully won, tried the Articles of Confederation, a little bit of a misfire there, which was they understood some of the problems. But then they huddled, and they said for a couple of years, and they studied Roman civilization and Greek civilization and the British Empire and the Chinese Empire and the Indian civilization and the African civilization and Mesopotamian Empire. And what they realized is that despite geographical dispersions, despite different religions and languages and beliefs and backgrounds, human beings are quite predictable creatures. So times will change, human beings will not. That's why the Constitution was written, not for the times, but written to stand the test of time. Okay? Human beings will not change. Technology will change, but human beings by nature will not. So what does that mean? Human beings will always be self-serving, self-interested, trying to maintain and collect as much power as possible. But when they do collect that power, they're going to be corrupted, they're going to abuse it, and they're going to go after citizens. And the citizens' capacity to express themselves, to be able to respect their own personal human rights, diminishes almost absolutely. And so the Founding Fathers understood this brilliantly, I think almost, I would say almost divinely. It was amazing that they were able to do this and the humility they put across. It could have been the Washington, Adams, Jefferson, and Franklin ruling class of America. You understand that, right? It could have been monarchies for centuries to come. They could have self-appointed themselves that. No one really would have stopped them because they just rebelled against the British government and got rid of all what they considered oppressive rule. And they could have ruled, and no one would have known anything different. But instead, they completely updid the table, and they said, we're going to try something totally new. It was a very, very big risk. So the Constitution recognizes natural rights. So where do rights come from? That's the final question. Rights come from, I believe, God, not from government. Even if you don't believe in a God, you can believe they come from nature, they come from other sorts of places. And that's pretty widely, it's widely debated by those on the left. That's okay. So why does that matter? Well, it matters because the answers to those questions bring me to my political philosophy. So are people good? Absolutely not. So what economic system will use the worst inclinations of human nature for the most betterment with the most checks and balances that you have to force goodness upon your economic construct and structure? Free market capitalism, without a doubt. People are going to be broken, they're going to be self-interested, they're going to be greedy, they're going to be envious. All right, create something of value. Fine. You're a greedy asshole? Start a business. Employ people. Buy property. You have to if you want to make money in a capitalist society. You can be the worst person in the world. You cannot make money in a capitalist society unless you create value. And creating value means you take a risk, you invest something in it, you sell a product for more than you invested in, and you have to take a risk. Someone might not buy that product. Someone might not be interested. So it uses the worst inclinations of our broken human nature so that you have to actually maximize the most amount of good for the most amount of people. You can be a horrible human being. Really hard to make money without employing people, without giving opportunity to others. It's really hard to make money without creating a very good widget or tool or idea or financial instrument or buying a lot of property. That's important. But you know what? I also believe in an economic system that does not just reward success, but you also have to take responsibility for your failure. Which is why I'm so against the bailouts and the subsidies and the crony deals in Washington, D.C. Because if you take a really, really big risk, you should also have to take responsibility for that failure. So, of course, going back to the questions of what is the best way to teach goodness, well, I believe that religious freedom is paramount and that family should be, the family structure should be kept together large in part whenever possible, and that government has incentivized the exact opposite. Okay, so if you look at the black community in the 1960s, single motherhood rate was 21%. Now single motherhood rate in the black community is 78%. What happened? Did America become more racist since the 1960s? No, we actually became significantly less racist since the 1960s. Our government welfare program subsidized single motherhood over the last 50, 60 years. We literally pay mothers to not get married because as soon as they get married, they lose their welfare check. Some of it was reformed in the 1990s, but not enough of it. We have completely broken urban areas with broken government-run public schools and a welfare structure that rewards bad choices. Not getting married is not good. Black fathers matter. If we were able to bring down the single motherhood rate in the black community by even 50%, you'll see the poverty rate go down with it. Every independent study will show that when there's a nuclear family is kept together, poverty goes down. It's the number one indicator to help people out of poverty. In the words of my great friend Ben Shapiro, who cites a liberal think tank, the three things you need to do in America to stay out of poverty is what? Who knows it? You got to get a job, you got to graduate high school, and you got to get married before you have kids. Those three things, unless you're horrible and reckless with money, you're almost assured, almost guaranteed to stay out of poverty in America. With certain exceptions, you might get run over by a bus, you might get sick, or something horrible might happen to you, but it's almost like a 98%. It's an off the charts correlation. And so that's why I believe what I believe, okay? But what am I against? Because I'm also for a lot of stuff I just told you. What worries me? I'm worried about the rise of neo-marxism, both in the world and here in America. I'm worried about the rise of socialism. I'm worried about the rise of what I call totalitarian leftist fascism that is shutting down the expression of ideas, which is happening both in the technological sector, which was kind of shown a little bit to light today with Zuckerberg, and also happening on college campuses, where the idea of discourse and dialogue and discussion is completely and totally shut down. I hear all the time, I had a student last night say, Charlie, the ideas, and my speech last night was very similar to this, but they said, Charlie, what you just said, I'm a master's degree student at Penn State University. In economics, my undergrad was in like social science or something. I have never heard once the stuff you talk about natural rights, about economics, about conservatives, not once. He said, I'm an independent. He said, I'm not opposed to your ideas, I've just never been exposed to them. And I hear that time and time again. And it's almost, ask yourself the question, it's almost intentional. Almost intentional. That someone doesn't want these ideas to be brought out. So that's why I believe what I believe. That's why I started this organization, kind of tying it together with one other thing. We are the luckiest people in the world to live in this country. Seriously. It is one of the greatest blessings that we can possibly. And I am routinely concerned and worried with the rise of anti-Americanism on college campuses and in this country. The disrespect for our veterans, the disrespect for our wonderful police, by the way, the disrespect for our, seriously. And the recognition, sometimes the lack of recognition of how lucky we are to live in this beautiful, beautiful country. Do we have faults? Of course we do. Absolutely. I mean, everyone has faults. We've made probably the biggest, if I had to go to categories of where America's made the most amount of mistakes, I'd say foreign policy would be the top. I would say foreign policy is the leader. And that's more the libertarian side of me, by the way. You're going to hear both sides. I have some conservative leanings foreign policy. Let me give you an example. It's kind of an issue that I've been on lately, and the more studying and more reading I do about it, the more upset I get. And it was kind of a recent court decision that really propelled me to read about it. So all of you, I guarantee you, do you remember where you were on 9/11? All of your hands will probably go up, right? You remember where you were now. There's been 2 attacks on the U.S. homeland by a foreign government in the last 100 years. Pearl Harbor and 9/11. Now, I look at 9/11, and still, the politicians' silence on this issue has been stunning. Because there was a country that pulled off 9/11. It wasn't Iraq. It wasn't Iran. It wasn't Palestine. It wasn't Hezbollah. It wasn't Hamas. It was Saudi Arabia. It was Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia. And you study it, 18 out of 19 of the hijackers are Saudi Arabian. I remember asking my second grade teacher, I said, why? Saudi Arabian, Saudi Arabian, Saudi Arabian, Saudi Arabian, Saudi Arabian. And oh, no, but it was Saddam who was behind it. Really? Saddam Hussein was behind 9/11? Like, this is what I was being taught in my schools. And there was actually a more like pro-Bush argument, which looking back was like weird, right? It was like, I was trying to challenge her and she's, without even knowing it, defending Bush. 9/11 was financed by Saudi Arabia. 9/11 was, they ran a mock run of 9/11 in Saudi Arabia. And the equivalent would be if after